Good morning, everyone. It is the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 5th of August, and we are looking ahead to Rangers against Viktoria at Plzeň in the Champions League third round qualifier. Chris Jack, managers always say that when they've had a horrendous afternoon, as Rangers did on or evening, as it were, on Saturday, that they want a game to come around quickly, and the Rangers have that tonight at Ibrox. We're going to get into all of Russell Martin, what he had to say at yesterday's press conference. We'll discuss the teams, who drops out, who doesn't, what can we read into what he had to say, European squads, who's made it, when will we find out official confirmation of that as well. But a reminder before we get into that this video is brought to you by Willows Fencing, Glasgow's reliable fencing company with over 20 years experience. All the links are in the description below. Right, Chris, you were there yesterday to hear from Russell Martin, who was a bit calmer than he was on Saturday tea time. What do you make of it overall? Because it's a long press conference, a lot was said. We're going to get into some of the clips. What did you make of what Russell Martin had to say, and maybe the tone as well that he was speaking with ahead of this one tonight?
Really, a press conference dominated by one issue. I think it was just over 15 minutes that we got with the manager yesterday. If another 15 minutes had been made available, you could have sat there for quite some time and covered a whole other range of bases. Injury news, team news, individual players. There's so much more to get into. That will have to wait for another day. I thought he was really interesting on the main topic, obviously, what he said on Saturday at Fir Park, how he approached not just the result but the performance as well. Like he said yesterday, even if the Rangers had won that game 1-0, sorry, he would still have been as upset. They obviously drew one each, very upset. If they'd lost it, aspects of it he'd have been just as upset with. So I think that's a good thing. It shows that he's not that reactive to results. He knows that performances need to be a whole lot better. So I thought he was really interesting on mentality and character and leadership and all the things that you perhaps don't expect Russell Martin to actually talk about. Now you expect him to be a bit more tactical, to try and explain his system, to be focus on technical and tactical aspects of the team. I don't think people expected him to come in and for him to have one of the main issues are mentality and leadership and some of the more old-fashioned stuff, if you like. But he clearly sees that as an issue within that squad. There's not enough leaders in that group. There's not enough people who know what it takes to win. There's not enough people who have won at this football club, and that's an issue. That's an issue that he has to solve, either by bringing people out of their shells and make them into leaders, or by doing more work in the transfer market and bringing guys who have that ability and have that character and that personality, not just in terms of shouting and ranting and raving and being a vocal presence, but being brave on the ball, being willing to take it in tight areas, being willing to make those passes, being willing to dig out your teammate, being willing to help out your teammate. That's all the aspects that he's looking for, and certainly he clearly feels he didn't see enough of those aspects at Fir Park.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear. There's a kind of lengthy answer at the start of Russell Martin's press conference, and I thought we'd just play it all because it kind of, I think, sums up from his point of view the reason he was so critical on Saturday night and or in his phrases, so honest. So let's play that, and we'll get into some more talking points once we've heard from him.
Critical of the players after Saturday. What sort of response have you seen from the team training since then?
I think I'm just always going to be honest with the players and the supporters, and I'm just not here to play any games really and be political and all that. I think I'm in a job that demands certain things, and when we fall short of that, there's just no point in hiding behind stuff. And you know, when the fundamental problem on Saturday was not knowledge, was not ability, it was attitude. So I think. I wasn't emotional on Saturday. It's exactly what I said to the players. So the response has been good. You have to watch some clips in here in this room you sit in now, and I have to explain to them why, to make them understand. what's expected and what's not going to be acceptable. And I think this football clubs and the supporters will demand certain things are not acceptable, and certain things that they have to be shown every single minute you're on the pitch. And it's the same old stuff I've said from day one, which is fight, willingness to run, to help each other out. And it is hard, like to play for this club is not for everyone, it's not easy. So you have to be a really resilient and strong person. And the self-preservation stuff I spoke about happens throughout football. It's really difficult when you're having tough moments. You slip back into like trying to protect yourself, but actually that doesn't help. So I have empathy for players when it gets tough, but let's always go back to being really horrible and hard to play against, and we weren't hard enough to play against on Saturday. So that's all it came down to. There was no point in sugarcoating it. The players know what to expect. I'm really honest with them, and I was really honest with everyone else, and people can make what they want of it. We're 3 games in, we haven't been beaten in any of them games, but we have a lot to improve and work on. But the stuff to improve needs to be technical, tactical. The thing that sort of, while we're building and changing so much, and change can often be messy, the things that need to work on and stuff can't be mentality. It has to be all the rest of it, you know, the detail, the technical stuff, the tactical stuff, and we'll work on that together and we'll get better and develop. But let's build it on the basis of really strong mentality wherever we go. So that has to be the bottom line.
Okay, there you go, Chris, and everyone watching. A bit of a lengthy answer. I put in the piece I wrote on the website after the game something along the lines of the reason I think that Martin kind of came out on the attack as opposed to, you know, defending his ideas or trying to give some sort of mitigation is because from his point of view, he probably felt like they weren't on show. Now you can argue again, and understandably he's going to have people to win over performance-wise after Saturday. But I think that's the reason that he chose to go after the players, for want of a better word. Coming here from Ross saying, ultimately we'll see what minerals Martin has with his team selection tonight, or if he meant what he said, or if it was all just waffle. Some contrasting comments here too. Why do our support expect the squad to be overhauled in 6 weeks with a core that's let us down for years? Phil, not happy, saying we're weak. Players look confused based on Saturday. But Scott says Russell Martin is honest, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. Listening to him, it's what's needed. It's going to be intriguing to see the team tonight, Chris, because Russell Martin tried to kind of play down yesterday that, people who aren't in the starting 11 tomorrow night, and doesn't mean to say that they won't be here. He kind of softened his comments on ego as well, saying that it's about self-preservation, people throwing their hands up. You can back step a little bit, but regardless, I think you've got to make some big changes in the starting 11 tonight, because if not just for the squad, I think externally, supporters, people trying to buy into his ideas, when you go that hard, you've got to follow it up with some level of action in your starting 11. What do you think? I know you and Stevie touched upon it a little bit yesterday, but given where the squad is, how many changes can we realistically see? But given the strength of his comments, surely there's got to be a handful of changes, a number of changes tonight, hasn't there?
I think people are already counting down till about 90 minutes or so before kick-off when UEFA or Rangers put out that team line. It's a really eagerly anticipated team sheet. If it's the same as Firth Park, then real questions will be asked. It's going to put people on the back foot. It's certainly going to get people's backs up. He can't be that strong after the game and then have the same guys going out on the park. I don't think it will be the same team. I think we will see changes. I think Nico Raskin is one that could potentially come out of the team, and we'll see Lyle Cameron come in. I think we'll see Danilo come out and Cyril Dessers come in. The big one is going to be James Tavernier. Does he think now is the right time to drop the captain? I don't think a switching of Aarons to right back and bringing JFD in is going to solve all of Rangers' issues. The squad, I think people have to remember, the squad is just not there right now. Too many of these players shouldn't still be at this football club. Well, they are. The manager has to play them. He has to rely on them. The ones that he doesn't want to rely on at all, like your Davies, like Sir Ridvan, they're miles out the picture. They will
Yeah.
be nowhere near it, obviously, tonight and come the weekend. There's other ones he still has to rely on at present, while the squad is still being moulded in his image and what he wants it to actually look like. The team that started against Panathinaikos last week is not going to be the team that finishes the transfer window. The team that started at Fir Park, or even that starts tonight, that's not going to be the one that finishes the transfer window and is back in action early September after the international break. So I think we will see changes tonight. I think, I said the two that outlined there, I think Kieran Dowell will come out. That will maybe appease some people, but I think the Tavernier one is the big one. His effort at the weekend was nowhere near enough. You've seen that wee clip of the Motherwell goal back and being half-hearted in the tackle, half-hearted in tracking. That, if you look at how that goal was conceded and you then read the manager's comments, 2 and 2 doesn't equal a whole lot different from 4 for me. So I think Tavernier is a big call tonight.
Yeah, it'd be huge either way, wouldn't it? Especially because Russell Martin kind of defended him at the start of summer, and the European squad, Chris, still seeking exact clarity as to what that is. It was submitted, we believe, late last night. You've been chasing that up since late last night. If I was to ask you at the moment who you expect to be in there and not be in there, people at Rangers yesterday hopeful that new signing Oliver Antman will be in the squad, but Mikey Moore, given this under-18 issue, perhaps a little bit more difficult. Is that fair? Is that kind of fair barometer of where we think we are with this one?
I've just, as you were asking me there, I've just uploaded the UEFA squad list again, and Oliver Antman is, as expected, in. So while I'm speaking to you, I'm going to publish that article on the website to get that one out there. We're multitasking here. As expected, Antman is in, and Mikey Moore is not. Rangers confirmed that to us last night that would be the case on Mikey Moore. His international clearance is not through yet, so there's no real surprise there. A good moment for Russell Martin to see Antman make it though. As I said to you just before we came on the show, I expected him to be in the squad. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes straight back, if he comes straight into that starting lineup. Rangers need a better option on that right hand side. Kieran Dell is not that option, cannot be that option. And if Antman is fit, which he is, having come through his pre-season with Go Ahead Eagles, there is no reason why he can't come straight into that lineup tonight.
Yeah, a few people agreeing with you. James says got to start Antman, and Jock agreeing start Antman. Never mind the tour of Glasgow first. Your Rangers do seem to have this habit with new signings of trying to allow them to adapt to the new city for about a month before throwing them in. Andrew, do you think Antman will get minutes tonight? I agree with you, Chris. Throw him in. I mean, it's the context of, like, see if he's coming into a team that's playing brilliantly and a player ahead of him in his position who's contributing brilliantly. It's a different story, but he's not. I would throw him in there tonight. Let us know, folks, in the comments. Let us know the team that you would like to see, the 1 to 11 you'd pick, and we'll try and get through a few of them before the show is out. Chris, I agree with you. I'd like to see Antman in there from the left. Gassama didn't have his. I thought he started fairly brightly. I'm yet to watch the game back in full. I've only watched back the first half. Second half was much worse, but I thought Gassama had a few nice early touches and then just seemed kind of bogged down by everyone else and everything around him. Aside from that, could we see Cyril Dessers come back in? Nico Raskin, I think you raise a good point, and there's a comment here from Casanova that I think kind of prompts us quite nicely to talk a little bit more about Nico Raskin. He says Raskin would play a free role all over the pitch. He'd love that. Just say, Nico, go and shine. The difficulty is that is completely contrary to what Russell Martin wants, and people will understandably say, well, look at him last season. Look at how well he played in that number 6 position. But to throw or bring up, Chris, one comment Russell Martin said in pre-season about Nico Raskin, he said, I think less is more with Nico, and he wants him to do more by doing less. It does, as we discussed after the game at the weekend, that does feel like something that's going to develop over the course of the next month, because I don't think that role's getting the best out of Nico Raskin yet, but also I don't think Raskin is particularly benefiting the system, because I think quite a lot of moves have broken down on that side. Could you see him being one of the casualties tonight? It'd be a big call, given how good he was in Europe last season.
It would be a big call, but the manager is there to make big calls. He's paid to make big calls. He's going to live or die by big calls. I think dropping Raskin would be. It's not going to be a vote winner. We saw it towards the second half of last season how impressed people were with Nico, how much he really came onto a game. He grew in the eyes of the Rangers support heading into this season. People saying make him captain, make him the guy that you build the squad round about. If that had happened, I'd have been pleased with that. I've said that towards the end of last season, over the summer as well. I'd have liked to see Nico Raskin given that responsibility of being the main man in midfield. The arrival of Joe Rothwell changes that, though, because Rothwell has come in, manager signing, knows the system, knows how Russell Martin works, and the manager clearly feels that Rothwell is the main guy in that midfield, and the one that he wants to be that pivot in the middle of the pitch. Where that leaves Nico Raskin is playing in a role that doesn't really suit him, that doesn't get the best out of him, and once Thelo Asgard is fit, it's hard to see Nico Raskin getting on this side. And if you're then Raskin, you're coming off a good season, you're coming off a season where you've made international appearances and you've got real kind of highs of during your time in the Belgian national side. Is he then thinking, well, is Rangers the best place for me anymore? Is it time to actually try and move on? So,
and Chris, it's also a World Cup year, isn't it? And
exactly.
if you're Nico Raskin wanting to play as a number 6 for Belgium, and you're fighting for a number 8 spot at Rangers, doesn't exactly line up. And the reason I think he's not playing as a number 6 is because, we spoke about this a bit on the show, is because I think that's the one position that Russell Martin wants someone who he can absolutely trust to play passes at the right time, to take risks at the right time. And I don't think he will have that with Raskin yet. And I think you've seen that in some of the, being at games, watching when sometimes maybe Raskin drops to get the ball when he shouldn't, or when he doesn't kind of adhere to the system. That's probably, again, people will be screaming and saying, that's a positive, allow him to do his thing. And I agree with that to an extent. You saw how good a player he is last season, but fundamentally, the reason I think Russell Martin was so angry at the weekend, especially in the first half, was because quite a few situations where Rangers get into good positions, but then, as he called it, players make, I'm not just saying it was just Nico Raskin, but players make selfish decisions. They shoot or they hold on to the ball for too long. To throw it on to Oliver Antman, I think he's the kind of opposite of that, because he's played, he created, I think, 17 goals in the Eredivisie last season, which is a very respectable total. He's come through at FC Nordsjælland, so he's kind of used to a similar game model that Rangers might play here. You've kind of been across that transfer right over the weekend, Chris. You had the exclusive news on Saturday. I think that deal had been agreed and moved quickly from there. As a player, this deal, it seems like one that Rangers and from what I've heard, Russell Martin personally is really excited about. And it gives Rangers, I know he's not a left-footed right winger, but he is a proper right winger. When was the last time Rangers signed a proper right winger permanently? Because Václav Černý was on loan. Daniel Candeias, are we going back to that stretch? I don't know. Tell us a little bit about that move, that transfer, what you kind of expect from Oliver Antman, who obviously trained with his teammates yesterday.
I think he ticks a lot of boxes, and as you've outlined in a couple of the scout report pieces that you've had on the site, he looks as if he will fill a role that Rangers badly need filled. They don't have enough quality, they don't have enough depth in those wide areas. He is a guy who can provide assists, he's a guy who can provide goals. He's of a really good profile. Now, still young, early 20s, already a Finnish internationalist, and at £3 million up front, it looks an interesting bit of business for Rangers. It fits into to use the old phrase, the player trading model. It looks a guy that they could, if all goes well, they could take a good bill to make a bit of a profit on. But that's obviously for further down the line, and before we can even think about that, he has to come in, has to perform. he will be a big part of this squad. He's got a free run at that right hand side. The options are just not there. I'd like to see Rangers sign another one potentially, depending on how those wide areas shape up. Really looking forward to seeing Mikey Moore in action. But Antman is more established, has more. He might not have the natural ability of Moore, hasn't come with the same hype, potentially doesn't have the same ceiling. You would in 10 years' time, but also Mikey Moore goes on and has a higher profile and more successful career. But for where Rangers are now, Antman looks more suited to come in and have a sustained impact, just because it does have that. It does have a bit more football behind him. So I think it's a really good bit of business. Ideally, he was here a couple of weeks ago, and you would have had him in the team for the past games, and you would have had him available for Fir Park. It didn't happen. That's the nature of the beast for Rangers right now. They're very much a work in progress. Anyone who expected the manager to come in and have 12 new players in the squad and 12 no-use players out the squad in the first day of pre-season, and for Rangers to be perfect in these first games, they've not really been paying attention. That just doesn't happen. Yes, Rangers could have been better, should have been better, have to be better. Completely understand all of those points. But you see a signing like Antman coming in, and you can see why that will make Rangers better and how that will make Rangers better. And they need more players like that to come in and really raise the levels of this team.
Yeah. That another comment that Russell Martin made after the game on Saturday. He was talking about the average in the squad and how there's a group that will just go along with. Help me out, Chris, here, because I'm paraphrasing. A group that will go along with like the strongest core, whether that's like really positive and bought into the system, or whether it's kind of throw your hands up in the air and complain about it. And I think that's one of the reasons that he needs a few new signings. But Antman should just give Rangers a bit. He should run in behind. I mean, Saturday was so to feet everything in front of Motherwell, and I think that really helped Motherwell in how they could press, because they didn't really have to worry about anyone running behind them in the other direction. I would throw him in tonight, absolutely. Where else would you make changes in, Chris? We've spoken about right back, we've spoken about Nico Raskin. Let's talk about the centre forwards position. Who plays there, do you think? Because Danilo looked cut a frustrated figure, had a couple of moments in the first half where I think better service would have helped him. I just wonder in this system when it relies on a striker to dominate quite a big space, right? And what I mean by that is that I think you need to either be a really clinical striker in the system who stays in the box and just finishes things, or one who drops and links play and is effective at that. And we've seen Danilo drop a little bit, not tons. I just wonder if he's a player who's better in a kind of tighter system where he's close to teammates and he can show his technical ability, as opposed to something where it's bigger open spaces and it relies more on him physically. Do you think Cyril Dessers comes in tonight? Because again, if you read between the lines, Russell Martin was pretty glowing in his praise of him post-match contextually, wasn't he?
He was. It's obviously between those two, with Igaman not making it, and I feel slightly sorry for Danilo over the course of the 3 games. I think, as you've touched on there, the service has not been there. The Rangers have not created anywhere near the level of chances that you would expect, and I think that's one of the main criticisms of Russell Martin so far. And one of the things that, while he can talk about the running and the being brave and the leadership, he has to take responsibility for how this team sets up and how it looks. And from middle to front, Rangers have been fairly abject over these 3 games. Now the goals they've scored are a really nice move in Panathinaikos or over in Athens, to get that goal from Gassama. The other ones, they're long range efforts. Now they find the bottom corner, sometimes they find the back of the Copeland, and it's not like sustained periods of pressure that Rangers have been putting teams under. Second half on Saturday, they put Motherwell under no pressure at all until the last couple of minutes. I think somebody got down the right hand side late on, he flashed the ball across and it got cleared. There was very, very little in terms of Rangers actually looking like cutting teams open. So if you are the centre forward in that team, and that's the service, what are you expected to do? Danny is not the type like Igaman who could pick the ball up in the halfway line and beat 2 or 3 and then stick it in the top corner. Igaman is that unpredictable. That's not Danilo. That's certainly not Cyril Dessers. So I do feel slightly sorry for Danilo. The service just hasn't been there. The chances haven't really been there. But does he suit what Russell Martin is trying to do? I remain to be convinced. So I think we will see. I think we will see Dessers tonight. It's interesting that the manager really singled out 2 players post-match on Saturday. One was Lyle Cameron for the way he came in and he went about his business. Manager seemed really impressed with him. So I think he'll start ahead of Raskin. And again, those comments on Dessers almost bigging him up, giving him a wee bit of a boost, perhaps knowing that he's the guy that he's going to call on at Ibrox tonight.
Yeah, definitely a few more. Any clarity, Chris, on who has anyone dropped out of that European squad? A lot of questions about that in place of Oliver Antman. Obviously, I think Rangers can make 2 changes in this round and the next round until they submit their final squad. Is that right?
Yes, Antman has been listed amongst the forwards, but the man that drops out is Thelo Asgard. Having a quick scout through it, he was also listed amongst the midfielders. So your first team midfield options are Rothwell, Cortez, Barron, Diomande, Bayrami, Cameron, Dowell, Gassama, Raskin. That's the great established ones. And the forwards list now reads Dessers, Antman, Igaman and Gentles. So it looks like Asgard has missed out. Obviously, no prospect of him playing in the second leg, which is a blow because an injury that was billed as a couple of days. We're now taking over the weeks and the games rather than just the days, unfortunately.
Yeah, very much was billed as a couple of days, wasn't it? And Russell Martin hasn't really elaborated on that in his press conferences, so we will try and get a bit more clarity on that. But as you say, Chris, that is a slightly confusing one on Thelo Asgard because, and also I think it's a player that Rangers will really be missing at the moment. But that's where I understand a lot of people's frustration as well, because you're watching a lot of the same players when you want to see. There's only 4 new signings in the starting 11. I agree with you that you can't do all the work by the time Motherwell comes around, but ultimately people just want something new, don't they? And I think that there can be an acceptance of, see if it's Lyle Cameron and I don't know who else, Max Aarons and Jeffy as your fullbacks of the weekend. And it's, I don't know who could have been on the right wing. Let's say even Oscar Cortez, for argument's sake, or Finlay Curtis. I think people can accept that a little bit more because it's not the same old failings. So again, going to be intriguing to see what Russell Martin does in response to that tonight. We'll get to a few more comments before we close. Prime time, not happy with the Raskin situation, saying if you move Raskin for Rothwell, there's a serious issue and I'm worried. James McGill, just play players in their proper positions, no square pegs in round holes. Andrew says, thanks to whoever gifted him a membership yesterday. I was listening while working and missed it. Thanks for the generosity. And a couple of teams here, Hugo Bear, Butland, Darren, Giga, Fernandez, Jeff Day, Raskin, Cameron, Gassama, Dessers, Danilo, Antman. That's an attacking team, isn't it? Chris saying Butland, Darren's, Giga, Fernandez, Chefty, Raskin, Rothwell, Diamande, Gassama, Antman and Dessers. Chris, I'm not going to ask you for 1 to 11 because I don't think I could give you that off the top of my head. Or should we go through it? Let's go through it. Actually, let's go through it. We can muster that up. Butland obviously starts in goals. Do we think James Tavernier really drops out tonight? I don't know if it'll happen. To be honest, I'd like to see a left footer on the left side though. So let's say for me, Chefty and Aarons play. Chefty has his weaknesses, but I also think he has his strengths. And again, a left foot on that side is important. Thought Giga was really good at the weekend and looks like the latest loan signing that Rangers won't be able to keep because he's probably too good for them permanently. Suter, I think it'll be Rothwell, Diamande and Cameron. I think you might see Raskin drop out. And then Dessers, Antman and Gassama. Do you disagree with me in any of those positions?
That's the side that I would pick. As we touched on earlier on, it's a big call on the captain. Right back is almost a position that shapes so much of this team now. Going forward, I want to see Max Aarons at right back. He has to play more games than James Tavernier over the course of the season. Aarons has to be the first choice right back this season. And I think the manager has almost he hinted at that. He said last week about he said last week or the week before about Aidan Nastic could do that job on the left hand side. It's not his natural position. I think he said on day one, you might have done an interview with him at Ibrox talking about Tavernier, and he's not going to play as many games this season. So I think he's without coming out and saying Tav's not first choice anymore. I think he has hinted that Tavernier won't be a regular, as we've said over the last half hour or so. The options, other kind of movements in the squad. If a first choice left back was there, I think it makes it very easy. Your left back goes in at left back, your new right back, and Aarons goes in, and Tavernier doesn't play. I don't think he's been overly impressed with Jeffrey so far. I don't know how much information Jeffrey has been able to take on in terms of that position that Aarons has been able to take on. Maybe he feels that Aarons, even though it's his wrong side, must know that he knows that position and can play that position better than Jeffrey does. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tav ends up playing tonight. Long term, as I said 10-15 minutes ago, long term, once the squad evolves and continues to get stronger, I think that becomes a very different conversation. If we're sitting here in 6 weeks and James is still playing every minute, that's then a bigger conversation, a bigger problem, and one that Russell Martin will have to justify to the Rangers fans. So I think you will see Tav tonight, but say going forward, once Rangers can get a left back in, that switch can happen, and it makes Rangers a far more effective side.
Yeah, a lot of people not happy with the prospect of Raskin dropping out. So just to confirm, this is just what we think might happen. We're not trying to make it happen in any way. Nicky says, surely Dio is the obvious one to drop from midfield. And I think that is a fair point. And maybe if you had Antman ahead of Raskin, then that gives him a bit more space to play as number 8. But I just wonder whether in that attacking number 8 position we might see a change. I think we spoke a lot about, even this time last year, Chris, I felt like I was a broken record saying that Raskin should play and give him time. And for me, he's probably the player I think with the highest ceiling in the Rangers squad. So it feels a bit futile to talk about him coming out. But you're looking at, is Martin going to drop Rothwell for tonight? I don't think so. Where was the unhappy? I think in the attacking areas. Where does he have options? Could you see Lyle Cameron come in because of that comment? Listen, we'll see it at 6 o'clock or 6:30 or so tonight. But yeah, definitely a position, a subplot of this summer to keep an eye on. Chris, you're going to be at the game tonight. We'll have full live pre and post match coverage. Please subscribe on YouTube if you have not done so already. A large percentage of people watching have not subscribed. It is as easy as clicking the button below and really helps us to bring you these videos every single morning and more. But until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We will be back later on to bring you more Rangers conversation pre and post match with Viktoria Plzeň. And a reminder that I think I'm right in saying, Chris, the game is on BBC tonight, so people don't need to shell out for a various subscription here or there, which is always welcome. So you can watch it on BBC if you're not at the game yourself. We will speak to you later, and goodbye for